Welcome you all to If You Reach the Unlimited. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited. We are early today because we have a special guest, and we're accommodating time zones. So this has been a fun thing. 2 people are on. Hi, you guys. I don't know who you are yet, but I'll look in a minute. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And remember that we have created this space to help all of you to be able to expand and explore your highest potential and to reach for those sparks and those inspirations deep within you to reach for your highest limit. So thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank my special guest, Fay, for being here all the way from Scotland. And she is going to share with us and talk to us about her experiences, about how she developed a relationship with plants. And it's been an interesting journey for you, hasn't it?
Hi, JoAnne. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm in Scotland right now. The rain, summer in Scotland, the rain is hitting the window, and here I am. So it's really great to be here. And
awesome.
I'm really delighted to share my passion for plants with everybody because the spirit of plants discovered me, and boy, when it discovers you, it just doesn't let you go. Mm-hmm. So shall I tell you a little bit about my story and how it all happened?
Yes. And also include that. One of the, I kind of got off my bio a little bit, but one of the things to include too is what encouraged you to reach for your highest potential? What got you out of that old way of thinking to take this path?
So I think for me, I actually got on my spiritual path almost a bit by accident, and it was 20 years ago. I'm not ashamed to say a boyfriend of mine said, "Hey, I've heard this thing called Reiki. It's kind of like a healing thing. Do you want to do it?" And I, at the time in my mid-20s, I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's just do that." And I had absolutely no idea that this journey with Reiki, with healing, was going to connect me to really what was in my heart. And that's been my journey with Reiki. And Reiki has led me to the plants because I had no idea really that within me was this love for plants. I think I always thought that plants were the kind of thing that my mum was into, and it wasn't for me. And I was the kind of person who I'd be in the office and there would be fresh flowers in the office, and I had no idea. I knew they were beautiful and I knew they were yellow, but I had no idea what types of flowers they were. I just knew that they looked great and they smelled nice and they brightened up the office. So but the spirit of plants did discover me, and I was in that place where I just knew that there was something needed to change, because even though outwardly things looked amazing, I had this great job, it was all very corporate, it was almost like I was ticking off those things that one should do in one's 20s, when one's been to college and they're out in the world and you're kind of getting the high heels and the handbag and you're just ticking off all these things that you think are what defines success. And maybe that's the way, I was brought up, or pressures I felt on society, or maybe it's just something I picked up from somewhere. And so what happened to me, there was one evening, and I got into such a stress after a particular meeting at work, which was going on and on. It was one of those meetings that nobody wanted to be in, and you're listening to the manager tell you how everyone's got to pull their socks up and nothing's working and you've got to collaborate as a team. And it was just in my heart, my whole heart was screaming, and I just wanted to leave out of there. And I actually did leave the meeting, go onto the street and scream, because I just had that in me. Yeah. That kind of, that breaking point, and it was like, whoa, this woman's gone crazy. And I just knew something needed to change. Wow. And that led me to journal, to really get connected again with self-Reiki practice and journaling. And then one day, after I was kind of sitting at a nice cafe doing my journaling, reflecting and trying to sort of get in touch with what is it that I really want, I walked past a store, and it was lit up with all these amazing, beautiful plants. Mm-hmm. And something in me I just went along, and I bought as many of those plants as I could take home. Get in touch with what is it that I really want. Mm-hmm. And I brought them home, I looked after them, and in a sense, the rest is history. If you fast forward a year after that particular moment, I'd moved to a small village in the UK where I had a back garden. I was growing my own fruit and vegetables. I was foraging. I was learning how to make herbal medicines, and I was working for a conservation organization. It was like something in me, the plants kind of came in, put their roots in, and were like, hey, we're not letting you go because there's some deep healing to go on here, and we're diving right in with you. And then that led me to study herbal medicine, which then led me on my journey to Canada, to Nova Scotia, where I started running a flower and herb farm with my partner, and things just carried on in this way.
Yeah.
Ever since the plants were like, yep, this person needs help. We're coming in.
So that's such a big jump from you obviously quit your job. You started learning about plants, herbology, and basically it sounds like you were going through the way of being able to use plants as healing in the beginning.
Absolutely. So that's kind of where, and this is what I noticed for a lot of people, the passion starts when, or we either like love creating a garden and we love growing vegetables, or we love flowers, or we have this passion for wanting to know about the medicinal properties of plants, because, we know that actually, especially when we become a bit disheartened with how the pharmaceutical industry, kind of dominates the health industry, we start looking for these natural alternatives. And so, yes, I started making my lotions and potions, and I started with this lovely body products. And I think that's how many people start. And actually, I'd really like to encourage people the best thing to do is find somebody local to you, to where you live, so that you can get in touch with those plants that grow locally to where you are. So they're on the same vibration as you. Right. And you can learn, it's very, very simple, how to make your own beauty products, and then you start progressing. It's like you just start following the passion. But what happened to me while I was running the flower farm is I was making all my lotions and potions, and I was making herbal teas and tinctures and so forth. And I was at this time, I was really opening up along my shamanic path. So that means I was connecting with the spirit, this sort of spirit that lives in everything. And so what started happening to me is I started feeling plants, if you like, feeling their vibration and experiencing their essential nature in a much stronger way than I was really using their physical properties and the way that they affect our physiological system, which is, typical of herbal medicines. So this world of plant spirits opened up to me, and I realized that I didn't need to always make a medicine or make a tea, a tincture, a salve, and so forth. I could actually receive this kind of emotional, spiritual benefit, and healing and wisdom and guidance from a plant simply by being in its presence.
I love what you're saying there, because if you think about it, it's like when you have a friend or maybe an acquaintance that you just meet, right? You don't really know the fullness of that person. But as you started, because I'm like you, when I first started doing herbology, I was all about how this is going to heal. And it was more in a I think, maybe doctor medicine kind of relationship. But it sounds to me like that's when you started going into the fullness of the way that all nature speaks to us. And everybody's different in the way that they connect with nature. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of moving away. Actually, what I feel like it's kind of moving away from when we work in herbal medicine sometimes, because it's so aligned with the way our sort of traditional medicine, we look at kind of, what's this plant good for? And we're kind of asking, what can that plant do for me?
Right.
Rather than actually just being kind of with the plant or the landscape or for what it actually is, and opening all our senses to this experience of being with another conscious being, just like you would be, we if you think about it in sort of the human world, we don't make friends very easily if we're thinking, well, what are you going to do for me the whole time? That, you know, if you're coming over all arrogant, of kind of like, hey, I'm so great, how are you? It's kind of a bit of a standoff, you know. It's not very attractive. But when we approach plants and nature from this kind of, you know, a level playing field, really, just looking and appreciating, and just, it's really meditative. It's just by being in nature, experiencing the plants and the landscape for what they are, and really I find it a very sensory experience, actually. Right. Not only using the physical senses, but actually that's when we start to almost bypass the physical senses, and then we get into the intuitive senses, and the feelings, the sensations, and the knowing. And that's almost when you start to really merge and feel this connection with the plant world. But once you do that, all sorts of magic can happen.
Yeah, totally. Because what I was thinking is, if you take that, then what you're really doing is you're going to the source of healing. Because if you take a plant, if you take catnip, I don't know, 5 came to my mind at one time. I have a cat here, so catnip will work.
Sounds great.
That's just, if you take that in its properties, that's just going to do X. But when you actually go into that meditative state and connecting with the overall vibration, as you called it, that's going to the core of the healing. And I think that's the part that we miss when we're doing more of the, like, solve the problem kind of relationship with herbology. We're not going to that core of the spiritual part of healing that's so important to our lives.
I think this is why we're so blessed these days, because we've kind of got all this part of it going on. We've got the because what the approach that you're talking about there is it's very mental, isn't it? It's thinking. It's thinking, right, okay, I need a plant that's going to appeal to my cat, you know, or it's going to be a sedative for my kids, and a nice calming, you know. Oh, I know. I'm looking at the properties, and I go, yeah, actually, catnip seems to fit the bill. But what we do when we work with the intuitive plant healing is we actually drop the awareness from the head really down into this heart space. And I kind of call this, like, you're kind of going through the world with your shamanic eyes and your shamanic ears, because that's all through the heart. Right. And it's the heart that will perceive the world differently. It goes to where it feels it wants to be led, rather than where the head thinks how the head thinks it wants to solve the problem. And actually, this is why, certainly when people come on my workshops or do my courses, and, you know, they feel a bit hesitant that they haven't actually had any plant experience, I kind of say, actually, it's easier when you don't have any knowledge of plants, because you haven't got your ego getting in the way that thinks it knows.
Right. And I think that is such an important point. If nothing else is really picked up from that, it's really going into, because your higher self, your true you, knows really what is best to heal you, more than if you go to a herbologist, even a shaman. I mean, you know what is really the key, because all disease starts way before you start feeling it in your body. And that's coming from your higher self. That's coming from you not listening to your intuition and living the life that you're really here to learn or be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the reasons I love to work with plants is because, you know, let's think of an oak tree, for example. The oak tree is an oak tree. It is completely in alignment with who it is, what its function is. It's never had a little wobble and thought, oh, you know, I think this year I'm going to grow roses. And it never has a wobble thinking, oh, you know what, I'm feeling a bit shy, I'm not gonna bloom this year. You know, so nature is completely in alignment with source, with creation. And we are too, except we've kind of forgotten that, and we've got a little bit off track some of us more than others, and that's why we look at spirituality to get us back on track, to get us back into connection with the knowing of who we are and what we're here to do. And so I really believe actually that just by spending time in nature, not only does it feel good for us, you know, and there's obviously lots of science telling us what it's doing to our brain now and why it makes us feel good, but I really think it appeals to that innate nature, the knowing within us. Yes. And it helps us, because it's vibrationally so connected to source. By hanging out, you know, with a tree, we are aligning ourselves with the true vibration, that kind of pulse of nature, of creation. And this, you know, and we do this if we work, you know, shamanically and get into sort of the trance in the journey, but actually we can do this by breathing and connecting with nature, because nature is creation. And because of how life has shaped us, we've got a little bit out of joint sometimes with the truth.
I love what you said. Another tweet moment, if you want to put it that way, is a tree, a flower, a bee, a bird. They never have to ask, should I or should I not? They do what is in alignment for them to do. And you're right. We're so disconnected from who we are and what we're here to do. So that was a beautiful way that you said that, even just get out in nature and reconnect, because not all of us are, my cat is below me, not all of us are, going to be animal lovers or bird lovers, or, we all have our own unique way of connecting with nature.
Yeah, we do. And I always say, it's particularly challenging if you're living in a city, because it's very easy for me. I'm in this beautiful countryside. I've got flowers and plants on my doorstep. But you see, the great thing about what we can do is we can, it's simple to find a florist that's selling flowers. Mm-hmm. So invite the outside world inside. If you haven't got a lot of accessible nature on your doorstep, though I don't believe that people don't have access to local parks, green spaces and trees, because plants grow anywhere. They are so resistant and resilient. But getting yourself to a florist. And I mean, this is actually one of the most fun things I love to do. And this is actually how you can physically see the healing power of plants, is when you go to a florist. Say you had a friend. I mean, it's great to do it for yourself, but it's also great to do it for a friend, especially if you think of a friend who maybe is they're having a bit of a hard time at the moment, or they just happen to pop into your mind when you think of someone who might need your help, and just hold them in your heart. Again, not thinking, oh, what would they like, but holding them in that your heart, thinking about how much you love them and care for them and what they're going through, and then entering into a florist or somewhere that's selling flowers and plants, and just asking with your intention, to pick up a bunch of flowers to give to your friend, to help them with what they need help with right now. And it's really great when you can be there when you're giving them the flowers, because the moment is beautiful, it's priceless. And that's the healing power of plants in action.
Well, I know in my life, when I was going through probably the hardest time, and I always have plants, always have had plants around me. One day I realized I had not one plant in my house, not one. And I was like, whoa, this is telling me a huge story. And now I have plants and stones everywhere.
Yeah.
Clearly I got over that part. But no, pay attention to how you interact with them, because even with me, if I'm having a bad day, I'll go and pick up some flowers just because I need to be cheered up. So I love that. That is
absolutely. It's a beautiful, flowers, I guess coming from someone who used to run a flower farm, I think I'm a bit biased, but they have such an ability. And what I love most really is that a flower. So sometimes when I was in the farming community, connect with vegetable growers, and they would admit to me that they didn't grow flowers because they weren't useful. Okay, so they're growing zucchinis and eggplants and tomatoes and all these wonderful things that we can consume. And on the contrary, that was all we were growing. We were growing flowers and herbs. And
Yeah.
I thought, actually, I beg to differ, because the role of flowers is actually the most beautiful and useful role of them all, because it brings joy, and they touch our hearts. That is the role of flowers. So that healing vibration that they have, to connect and bring healing. And so what they do is they touch our emotions. They connect with us emotionally. And so I think that's really one of their strengths, and that's, so if anyone out there is thinking about growing flowers, put some, and if you grow a garden along with your tomatoes, add some calendulas or something like that, something easy that's going to bring joy.
And
because
then
that's what I do.
We're going back to the herbologist versus the whole plant connection, because that's going back to I have to do what's mentally right versus what is holistically right.
Yeah, what your spirit wants to sort of see and live and experience in the garden. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, okay, so we really went off on a tangent on that one. So going back to, you were in the corporate world. Obviously, you did herbology work and shamanic work, and then you decided to have a flower garden, which you've farm, which you've spoken about. Was any of that, do you ever feel like, what am I doing? Am I crazy? Should I go back and do what this other path was? How did you keep going in that process?
I felt I was so ready. And I think that we get to that point where, and I've obviously reached that point now, because it's my path, it's my life, it's connection with plants. But you get to that point where I was, the sort of, the corporate way I was doing things, I was miserable, and I couldn't at the time, I couldn't really think of another way, because I was so sort of blinkered as to, this is what I was really stuck in. What I was stuck in is what I thought I was doing, what I was supposed to do.
Right.
I was stuck in that. And so this move to Nova Scotia, to Canada, to grow the flowers was just it was almost like breaking out of that, this is what you should do place. And there was absolutely no turning back after that. It was head first,
Awesome.
up to your eyes in weeds and flowers and soil, and very, very earthy, raw experience, really. And I think maybe that's what I needed to actually take me out of that groove that I'd fallen into, and get me into a different groove. Well, it was a complete change of vibration. Yeah. And perhaps I didn't need to do it so drastically as to, move countries. Yeah. But it was interesting. It came about because both my partner and I, we had this desire to grow, and we really felt like we needed space, so not just physically, but sort of that spirit, we needed space to kind of grow. And we had the most enormous vision board for the process of getting there. So it wasn't a process, when you make these really big life changes, they don't happen overnight. They're a detailed processes. You personally kind of go through your own healing transformation, and you shift a few layers of stuff, and you kind of you sort of ask yourself, well, what's it going to take? What am I prepared to give up? What story am I wanting to create for myself now? So we had this most enormous piece of, it's a vision board. It was a vision sort of wall, if you like, in our old house, full of pictures and words that we wanted to create. And it was a real stroke of synchronicity, that how we ended up at this particular farm, moving there. And I really felt at that moment, it was it's that sort of tipping point where you something needs to happen, and then you kind of debate for a bit. Oh, I don't know, that's a bit scary, can't do it, I don't know, it's easier just to stick with this, and maybe it can be different if I do this. That's a sort of one of the phases. And then there's another phase where you kind of have another, actually no, this is no, something, I've got to change. Something's going to happen. And
Yeah.
then you kind of get into this creative phase of, okay, well, what could it be? I don't know. What could it be? I don't know. And you have to sort of move. I had to move through a lot of resistance of, well, I don't know. And, just healing what it was that was blocking me from what my spirit really wanted to get in touch with.
Yeah.
So obviously, again, I was healing a lot of fear about doing something different, or going off the beaten path, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it comes a time when I started sort of visioning and trying to create this life that I was wanting to move towards, and I didn't know what it really was going to look like, but I kind of, like I said, I had pictures and words, and I was really kind of trying to jump into the vision of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think at that stage, the universe starts to help you.
Yes.
It totally helped me. And actually, this is a really funny, I'm going to share this, it's quite a funny story. So we were my partner and I, we knew we needed to move. So we started looking, we went on this sort of trip around the UK, looking at possible places we could move to and we could afford. And we went up to Scotland and looked at sort of, acres of granite landscape. It's like, oh, okay, that's all we can afford here. And then we, we even looked at France, because we were like, perhaps we can afford something in France.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were all these ideas floating around, like we were sort of trying things, putting ourselves out there. And then one day a magazine was put through our front door, addressed to me, and I'm like, hang on a sec, I'm not a subscriber to this magazine. What on earth is this all about? And I was flicking through, and there was a big section on Nova Scotia, and I have to say, I was quite uneducated on the geography of Canada, and I had to kind of look. I was like, what is this Nova Scotia place? And I started looking it up, and we started researching, and the next thing we know, we're going on holiday there because we wanted to check it out. And then we came back, and we're like going away again because we're like, you know what, I really like this place. I feel like we could live it. And that was how we made that leap. Again, I don't know how on earth that magazine ended up coming through our front.
You didn't have to know how on earth it came there. And that's what I love about your story, is it's really the typical example of when you start reaching and going forward, then the universe starts coming towards you, and then synchronicities happen, which have happened so many times with me. And you're sitting there going, wait a minute, like you did. That's such a encouraging and beautiful story, for sure.
Yeah, and it is, isn't it? And I feel actually that my life is full of that.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I can stand, as long as I can, face the fear, embrace the fear, because it's very scary to put your trust in the universe. Yeah. Especially when you've got bills to pay and people depending on you for other, things. So it's kind of trying to stay in that alignment, and knowing that things will flow for you. And it's very easy to get thrown off and destabilized and knocked off your center point. But that's why I suppose working with nature, spending time in nature, it is my number one way, that I recommend to everyone to get back to what is true. Right. Finding, a favorite tree or a favorite place to be in a natural landscape, or at the very least, a house plant or an office plant that you can just kind of, enjoy being with and look after, and just to connect with, to remind you of that sort of vibration of creation, which is totally like, it's that alignment that we were talking about.
So you had the beautiful opportunity to go to beautiful Nova Scotia and have a beautiful flower farm there. How long were you there in Nova Scotia?
We were there for 5 years. Wow. And it feels like a lot longer than that, actually. And actually, I mean, when I went there, I think, again, I didn't go there thinking, oh, we're going to be back in a few years. I went there fully, like, I fully stepped into, I thought I was going to be there forever. And I was fully prepared for that. So in a sense, I dove right into that opportunity that the universe was giving me. I wasn't 1 foot in with another foot back in the UK. We just went sort of head first in, if you like. Yeah, and it was really difficult for me to come back to the UK, actually, very hard. And I because I'd made such a connection with the landscape and the trees, and they were like my friends, you know, these plants that we had been nurturing for the last few years. And it was a tricky, I definitely, when we came back, I had a period of grieving for that. It was quite hard to just sort of snap out of it and suddenly, you know, come to a village in Scotland and, you know, with no farm and, you know, a tiny patch of garden. And because that's obviously, you know, it took us a few years to get ourselves back into the stride of it.
Well, I think the beauty of what you're sharing, though, is that you never know how the universe, how spirit is going to take you through your path, because clearly that was a part of your path. And that's something that we keep doing all through our life as we're going through the journey, and each step has another turn to it, can have another turn to it. And we have to be willing, like you did in the beginning, to trust what happens in the middle and the next middle and the end, or however it's going to unfold.
Yeah, I mean, and this is it. It was, it's, because going to Nova Scotia, that it almost seems a bit like a dream. And I think, did we really do that? Because now, you know, I'm in Scotland and we're very settled here. But I know that if I hadn't gone there, I would have never, I would have never written, I know I wouldn't have written my book in the way that the book has come out. That would have not happened.
Let's talk about that really fast, because I love how universe brought that into being. So it came naturally, but you did write a book.
That's the book. It's called Plants That Speak, Souls That Sing, Transform Your Life with the Spirit of Plants. Okay.
A beautiful cover.
Yeah, and yes, it's beautiful. It's got rose on it. So rose is a really special plant for your heart. So that, just that lovely rose on the cover. So and it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the usual places, and it's also available as audiobook on Apple Books and Kindle as well. So it's, and actually, I've had a lot of people say what it is it's got a lot of exercises in it that will help people connect with plants. So meditations, breathing with plants, these exercises. And I've had a lot of feedback from people that say they really enjoy the audio version because, you know, I'm speaking to you and I'm talking you through the exercises while you can be with a plant. So it's totally up, you know, it's obviously depends on what's your preference, but that's the book. And it's a guide, it's a guide to help people connect with plants based on the experiences I had when I was working in Canada. And I do bring the idea of shamanic practice in right at the end, but really it's a beginner's guide to connecting with plants. So it's for anyone who has no experience with plants whatsoever, just encouraging you.
Could you give us an example of one of the tools that you have in there? In your book?
There's a lot of exercises really that involve connecting with plants, and as I've mentioned, we do this by getting into the heart space. So should we do that now? Let's do that for 5 breaths now. Okay. And so if people are listening, don't do this while you're driving, or you can, but you might want to be in your headspace too.
Don't do it while you're driving. We want everybody to be safe. So no driving and meditation, no.
But this would be really quick. So let's just, you can put your hand on your heart if that feels good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath in. And then as we breathe out, just relax. And feel yourself coming into your center. And really landing here in this space wherever you are. And whichever parts of you are touching the earth or the floor or the seat, I want you to feel yourself being really held by the earth as if it was coming up to meet you. And then as you breathe out, imagine yourself letting go of any concerns or struggles or pain or stuff that's on your mind, and feel that floating down into the earth. And feel the floor, the earth, just absorbing that and transforming that for you. And imagining yourselves with roots that are coming out of your feet and traveling deep down into the earth. And feel those roots anchoring you into the earth and the heart of the earth itself. And feeling and opening to this earth heart in whichever way feels right to you. Opening to the sense of what the center of this earth is like. And feeling the pulse, the heartbeat of the earth. Feeling the creative force that pulses, driving everything that breathes and grows on this earth. And breathe in, and as you breathe in, imagine yourself drinking up with your roots the nourishment, love, and vital force that is pulsing through the earth. Just breathing normally and imagining this love and nourishment traveling up through the earth and connecting with your body, with your feet and your sit bones. And then feel that love and nourishment traveling through each cell in your body, as if it was lighting up each cell in your body with love, with nourishment, with care, with vital force, with the force of creation, that ability to grow, that ability to flow with the rhythm and the cycles of life and the seasons, and feel your body coming alive with this connection, this remembering this connection to the earth. Remembering in your heart that you are a being on this earth, you're a creature of this earth. You're always connected to the source of nourishment and love that is the earth. From the earth you receive water, food, nourishment, shelter, clothing, connection, and feeling that in your heart. And then beaming out your gratitude back down to the earth and out into the world. Feeling the flow of nourishment and love to you from the earth and out from you, out into the wider landscape that surrounds you. Bringing all your awareness into your heart and feeling that love for the earth and all that is provided for you from the earth. And open to this connection, remembering your connection to the earth. Opening up to the wisdom of this connection, this knowing, allowing yourself to align fully with the vital force of creation, pulsing through your being, shining out from your heart, from each cell in your body. Breathing and receiving this connection from the earth. And then take another 3 deep breaths in, breathing right down into your belly. Releasing, relaxing as you exhale. Another few breaths here. Feeling yourself fully centered, grounded and connected. Remembering remembering the truth of who you are and how very much you are loved. Then when you feel ready, release your hand if it's been on your heart, and bring some movement into your body. And when you feel ready, open your eyes and return to this reality, knowing that you are still connected with the earth and you are part of a much greater whole. You can return to this connection in your mind's eye and in your heart whenever you need to.
That was absolutely beautiful. It felt yummy to be like connecting to the pulse of our life, you know? And you brought a thought back to me. Some of the darkest times that I have had, I've been sitting in my meditation chair and I just listen to the birds around me sing. And they don't have to worry, like we talked about earlier, about tomorrow or whatever is on their plate. They just keep doing what they're doing. And they're always provided for. So I love that you brought in the birds singing, and it reminded me of that. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was beautiful.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too. I'm feeling pretty good now too.
Yeah, I know. Everybody must be like really more peaceful for sure. So now we're going to go from peaceful to not. If you live in a big city and you don't have a lot of parks and nature around you, what are some tips that you can give people to be able to tap into nature?
So bringing the outside in wherever you can. So, and even if you have things like a beautiful, many of us we go on these exotic holidays, we go to these vacations, or we go away for weekends because we go to these places in nature that inspire us. So have a photograph, have something from nature that's in your apartment, or even as a screensaver on your phone, at the very least, to help you connect to nature, to bring that element of the outside world in. And it might be a place in nature you've never been to, but you just see this view and you think, you know what, that inspires me, that reminds me of how good it feels to be alive, and having that on your wall. Also, I love to bring plants inside, obviously, flowers, as we've talked about, and even things like trying to eat food when it's in season, getting into the flow of getting in touch with the seasons and cycles of life, because this helps, and it never has a wobble, that rhythm of life, that we can become a little bit disconnected from that if we're in a city, or if we can't really connect with the moon cycles, and there's lots of daylight and this and that, street lights and stuff affecting that sort of rhythm. But you can connect with food which is in season for you, and work with the seasons in this way to nourish your body in that way. But I love to collect elements from nature, like seashells and leaves, just bringing feathers, leaves, etc., bringing them in to create a beautiful mandala, or just simply having them as a special object that you might have with you.
Yes, that's very important. And I love that. I think we forget in our society, because we go to the store, we buy the fruits, the vegetables from all over the world. We forget in our culture how important it is to have foods from our area, because of one of the reasons you talked about earlier, vibration, and our body is in sync with where we're at, right? So that's a very important part of our eating and nutrition as well.
Absolutely. But also, just to speak to that, I know most people like either a morning cup of tea or a morning cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And what's happened with us in our society is because we've become so disconnected from where that really comes from. So when you're drinking a cup of coffee, I know it might come from Starbucks.
Yes.
In its cup already, and you're just racing out the door. But that's actually a plant.
Yes.
So spending a few moments while you're sipping your first cup of coffee of the morning, just to honor that, like honoring this connection with nature, because just think of that coffee bean. It has made a huge journey. It was planted somewhere with an exotic clime, maybe even Guatemala or Colombia. It's gone through the growing cycle. Then someone came along and thought, okay, you're ready. We're going to harvest you now. And then it's gone through this whole procedure of being harvested and roasted and ground, and then it turns up in your coffee cup. Exactly. So this is amazing. Who even dreamt up that idea that that's what this coffee bush was going to turn into? It is amazing. So, and even chocolate, similar process. Yeah. And actually, isn't it great now? I see there must be local to you as well. Popping up these cacao ceremonies. People are bringing the sacred cacao ceremony to the UK and to Scotland, where I am, so that there probably are some near you as well. So it's really starting to remember and honor the sacred connection that we have with nature. Yeah. And even if you wear cotton clothes, cotton sheets, this is a plant. Right. So we've become quite disconnected from actually the source, of so much, of where so much of our nourishment and our clothing and shelter comes from. If you live in a wooden cabin or a wooden house, well, that comes from a tree, doesn't it? So we're deeply connected to our plant friends, but we don't really have that space in our society anymore that honors it. But it's when we start honoring it, that's when suddenly we feel that sense of connection, and suddenly the nature outside of us feels a little bit closer and it becomes dear to us. And this is when we start to get concerned if there's areas full of trash, or that people are destroying areas, or that town planners want to knock down, or remove some trees and so forth. This is when it starts to touch our hearts, and we start to remember this deep relationship that we have with the earth. So it starts, even if you live in a city, it starts with these really small things, and you can be thankful for the sun for rising in the morning as well. This is a spiritual connection to honor that and remember that these cycles that we're all part of this cycle.
We are, and I love that, because I think we do take for granted all of the things in our day-to-day life that do come from Mother Earth, and we are so disconnected from that we don't pay attention to it. We really, gratitude is a big thing, and it really can change the vibration of the entire world, as well as in our own environment, when we're really grateful for the things that we have, instead of always forging ahead to get the new or the better or the next or whatever. It's very important to your health and your well-being to be in gratitude. So
I totally agree, and it's one of the practices which is my an absolute essential kind of pillar, really, of practice is the practice of gratitude. Because, like you said, the vibration, it's the vibration of gratitude, and it's attractive, and it's this beautiful sort of domino effect. And this is one way. When people ask me, well, how do I connect with plants? What do I do? I don't know how to do any of this stuff. And I say, what we can do is just being in nature, or passing a tree. We've all had that experience where you're in the city at Christmas time, and you see the Christmas trees that they've got up, and they look so amazing, don't they? They look beautiful. They're like magical fairy lights, and they're amazing. But these are enormous trees, and so that gratitude, that's connecting to nature. Even though that tree's been cut, or it might be in water, and it's not going to have a very long lifespan, but just the gratitude for that tree, and seeing its beauty, honoring the beauty in nature. This helps bring us into connection with it, because the plants, they're intelligent beings, and they sense our vibration. They sense the vibration of us long before we've even become aware of the plant. In the sort of field, and yeah, if we've got a vibration of gratitude, one that's joyful, one that's like, oh, this is exciting, what an amazing tree, look at that, or what an amazing flower, isn't that beautiful? That attitude, it's infectious, isn't it? And that helps us, and it helps us make connections, not just with people, but with plants in the natural world.
Well, even like people, we're all different, and so everything in the nature kingdom is different. You'll never find the same thing in anything out there. There's no duplicate. I imagine there may be things like twins, but it's not very common, is my point. They're all different, and they all have different energy as well. I just did a video I'm going to post later about crystals and how that's the case with crystals. And I know you're into crystals as well, and that they all have their own vibration, their own energy. My next question to you was going to be, how do you describe to people the soul, the spirit, the energy of a plant if they don't really understand what it is that you're talking about? From a one-on-one basis.
I suppose, in a sense, it's like I kind of think of them just like people. They have their own personalities, and people, when, like, if my best friend's not here in the room with me, I can think of her and I can get a sense of her energy and her character. And that kind of the frequency, in a sense, that she functions on, and it's the same, and it's actually the same for plants. Right. So that might help people kind of tune in that way, to plants. To just really thinking of them as, well, they're vibrating just like we are. They've got, lots of processes going on which are giving off light, and so it's just thinking of them in those terms. And you can sense into this yourself. You can go and out in nature and go to a place that you feel drawn to go to, which might be by a beautiful flower, and just feel in your body, how does that feel? How does it make you feel to be with this beautiful flower? And just noticing sensations in your body, feelings, and so forth. And then take yourself to a place that it feels different, like a shady, damp, cold, chilly, different kind of place, and just feel the difference. And that's tuning into different frequencies. And we do this first. I always do it first, kind of, how does it affect me physically? And then I can kind of try to tune in and find my intuitive knowing and try and give it a label, so that I can identify it in the future. And sometimes when plants will be more attracted to some than others. And it's just really because they're a vibratory match to us. There's something in them that is kind of, we're attracted, just like you are with people, right?
Exactly.
And those are the ones worth exploring. But also sometimes, just like people, the ones that you feel a bit, like, oh, I don't really like that as much. Yeah. They're also worth exploring because they have something, they also have something to teach us, and it might be a bit more challenging. Yeah. So, if you're new to it, go to the ones that you're, excited about, that you feel called to. I always say to students that we never choose a plant; they choose us.
Right.
And I think that's really true. And it's definitely another thing I always say when students ask, well, how am I going to pick one to work with? How do I just pick one? And just like the way one, I always say that you're never going to pick the wrong one. Basically, right. Always trust that the plant you pick to work with, or the bunch of flowers that you pick for your friend, it's exactly the right one that they need.
And I love that's taking us back to the beginning, where it's trusting your intuition, because I think a lot of us, some people were born to keep that intuition through all their life. Some of us don't do that. We have to go away and then we come back. But I think your examples have been really helpful about just taking it slow and take one at a time and listen to your body and pay attention to how it feels. And is there tightness? Is there not? Smell it, kind of feel for it. And, it's just a learning process. And I think we're always pushed to be in a hurry, right? Take your time. Don't be in a hurry. Just feel nature and let nature feel you. And it really will be a great healing tool for sure. Nature is a beautiful healing tool. Do you have any last words that you would like to share with everybody that you would like people to take away from this?
Just really an encouragement to make that connection somehow. Start somewhere. So if all you can do is get the screensaver on your phone of the lovely, of a landscape that inspires you, fine. Or sip your coffee and think, oh wow, yeah, this is a coffee bean, I wonder how that got there. Fine. But if and just go in these little steps.
Right.
But definitely if you can, and if you work indoors quite a lot of the time, get a house plant, get a companion plant, get a plant for the office, or more importantly, give that office plant a bit of attention, because I know there are these poor office plants out there that are dusty, they're not watered. Just say hi, hi, how are you doing? You look beautiful today. Make those connections in the way that you feel comfortable. You start somewhere. It doesn't always have to be shamanic ceremony and smoke and song and all of this. It's start where you're comfortable and allow that green world in little by little.
I have to quickly tell this story. It's a horrible story, but it's really interesting for me. I was doing this class and we had to do this. We have 2 plants that were bought at the same time, same plant, same everything. And the technique was to give a lot of love to one, and they're right next to each other. So they have the same environment, right? And you're supposed to give love to one and not to the other. And I did that for a couple days. And I started seeing the one that I was not giving the attention to kind of starting to kind of dwindle. And I was like, no, I'm not even doing this. No, I'm not doing this. I'm not. It's just ridiculous, because I could see the plant was really being affected by it. And do you know, for the life of the 2 plants, I still have the one that I talked to, and the other one, just no matter what I did healing on it. I had a friend do healing on it. I did love to it. But the immune system of that plant was so depleted because don't ever do that exercise. I do not agree with it. It's abusive. But that's how sensitive that they can be. I mean, I did everything to this plant and talked to it, and it just was weak for the rest of its life. Anyway, that was my example of my experiment. Don't do it. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Is there any classes, anything that you have coming up that people might be interested in?
Well, I have I have an online program actually, which is open for enrollment, sort of all whenever. So folks can go and check that one out at fayjohnston.com.
Okay, and we'll put your information on the link here, and everybody can look you up. And thank you so much for taking your time. It was so fun chatting with you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, JoAnne.
And if you have any questions, everybody, please put it in the chat box. I've had a couple issues. I still have issues when I do a Facebook Live with actually monitoring questions and it talking and whatnot. Now the phone's going to ring. So put your questions and comments in the box, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. And thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody. All right, I had to do it fast so the phone didn't have to keep